The morning began like any other at the Seoul National University's Veterinary Research Center. Jae-sung Kim sipped his coffee, watching the research dogs through the large glass window of the observation room. Something felt different today, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. One of the German shepherds in the research area caught his attention. Its eyes seemed sharper, more focused than usual. It wasn't just watching the researchers anymore, it was studying them. Jae-sung leaned closer to the glass, his half-empty coffee cup forgotten on the nearby table. The dog named Bori, a typical research subject for canine behavior studies, was doing something unusual. Instead of responding to standard commands, it was watching the research assistants with an almost calculated gaze. Its head tilted slightly, ears perked up in a way that seemed more like careful observation than simple animal curiosity. "Dr. Kim," called Mina, one of the junior researchers, "you need to see this." Jae-sung walked over to her monitoring station. Multiple screens displayed data from various dog research groups across the facility. Something was definitely off. The heart rates, brain wave patterns, and behavioral indicators were showing unexpected synchronization across different breeds and individual dogs. "These readings," Mina said, her fingers flying across the keyboard, "they're not random. Look at the pattern." The brainwave data looked like complex communication. It reminded Jae-sung of encrypted messages, but instead of computer code, this was biological. Dogs from different research groups, some in Seoul, some in other parts of South Korea, were showing identical neurological patterns at precisely the same moments. Outside, Bori approached the electronic door lock. Without anyone touching it, the door clicked open. The dog didn't dash out, as a typical animal might. Instead, it simply walked out, turned, and looked back at Jae-sung with an intelligence that made his skin crawl. "That's impossible," Jae-sung muttered. By midday, reports started flooding in from around the world. Dogs were behaving strangely. In New York, a pack of street dogs had been observed using drainage pipes to navigate the city with remarkable precision. In London, security camera footage showed dogs moving in coordinated patterns that seemed almost military in their organization. Veterinary clinics reported dogs responding to complex, unspoken commands. Pet owners described their dogs solving puzzles they'd never been taught, understanding conversations with an uncanny depth of comprehension. Jae-sung called his colleague, Dr. Park Hyun-woo, a leading expert in animal neurobiology. "Something is happening," he said, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "The dogs are changing." "Changing how?" Hyun-woo asked. "They're becoming something else. Not just smarter. Something fundamentally different." As night fell, Jae-sung remained in the research center. Bori sat in the observation room, watching him. Its eyes reflected something more than an animal's simple awareness. There was calculation, purpose, and something that looked remarkably like a plan. Something was coming, and it was clear that the dogs were no longer just pets or research subjects. They were becoming something else entirely. The first stage of an extraordinary transformation had begun. The radio telescope at the Daejeon Space Research Center buzzed with static. Dr. Hyejin Park adjusted her headphones, listening carefully. Something was different about today's signals. Most researchers would have ignored the background noise, but Hyejin had always been more patient, more curious. Her computer screen flickered. The signal patterns were unusual, not random, but not quite like any known communication method. As she zoomed in on the data, a strange realization began to form. The signal's rhythm matched something she had seen recently in the canine research reports. Just 2 floors below, Dr. Sung-ho Lee was reviewing the latest behavioral data from global dog populations. Hundreds of research centers had been reporting similar findings. Dogs were showing unprecedented levels of coordination and intelligence. But Sung-ho noticed something even more strange. The behavioral changes followed a precise pattern. "Look at this," he called to his assistant, pointing at the multiple screens. Red lines connected different data points across the world. Dogs in Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, they were all changing in the same way, at almost the same time. Back in the radio telescope room, Hai-Jin's hands started shaking. She realized the signal wasn't just a signal. It was a language, and somehow, dogs seemed to understand it perfectly. A sharp bark interrupted her thoughts. Bingo, the research center's security dog, stood perfectly still near the main computer terminal. His eyes were fixed on the screen, tracking the signal's movements as if he understood exactly what was happening. Sung-ho rushed into Hai-Jin's office, a stack of papers in his hands. "You need to see this," he said, spreading the documents across her desk. Photographs, research notes, and satellite images told a strange story. Dogs were gathering in specific locations, not randomly, but with clear purpose. In city parks, suburban neighborhoods, and rural areas, dogs were meeting. Large dogs, small dogs, mixed breeds, they were communicating in ways humans had never seen before. Some researchers had noticed dogs using complex body language. Others reported dogs solving problems that seemed impossible for their species. "It's like they're preparing for something," Hai-Jin whispered. The radio telescope continued to receive its mysterious signal. Hai-Jin started comparing the signal's wave patterns with the dog behavior data. The correlation was impossible to ignore. Something was communicating with the dogs, something intelligent. Outside the research center, a group of street dogs watched the building. They didn't look like typical stray animals. Their posture was different. Their eyes seemed to hold a kind of collective intelligence that was deeply unsettling. As night fell, more strange events began to unfold. In military bases, police stations, and research centers around the world, dogs started showing abilities that defied explanation. They were accessing computer systems, understanding complex instructions, and moving with a coordination that suggested something more than animal instinct. Sung-ho's computer suddenly displayed a series of complex mathematical equations. At the bottom of the screen, a message appeared in perfect Korean. "We are ready." Hai-Jin and Sung-ho looked at each other. They knew, without saying a word, that everything was about to change. The dogs were no longer just animals. They were becoming something else. Something was coming. And it was clear that humanity was not in control anymore. The world changed slowly at first, then all at once. Woo Jin-kang, a senior military intelligence officer, noticed the first signs during a routine patrol briefing. The military's trained dogs were acting differently. They weren't just following commands anymore. They were anticipating them. In the briefing room, a Belgian Malinois named Razor stood perfectly still. Its eyes scanned the room with an awareness that felt more like a human analyst than a military dog. Wu Jin watched as Razor subtly adjusted a digital map on the screen with its nose, highlighting strategic points that human analysts had missed. "Something's not right," Wu Jin muttered to his colleague, Jae-hoon Park. Around the world, dogs were vanishing. Not all at once, but in a careful, calculated pattern. Families reported their pets missing. Animal shelters saw unprecedented numbers of empty kennels. Street dogs disappeared from their usual territories. In Seoul's busy streets, dog owners became worried. Pets that had never shown signs of aggression or a desire to run away were simply gone. Security cameras caught glimpses of dogs moving in organized groups, slipping through urban landscapes with remarkable precision. Dr. Hai-Jin Park's research team worked around the clock. They discovered something extraordinary. The missing dogs weren't lost. They were gathering. Satellite images showed strange meeting points in remote locations, mountain valleys, abandoned industrial zones, dense forests. Dogs were creating complex networks. Technological anomalies began to appear. Surveillance systems in military bases recorded dogs accessing computer systems, not by accident, but with clear intent. They manipulated digital interfaces, downloaded information, and erased their own tracks. One night, a breakthrough came. Sung-ho Lee discovered a series of hidden data packets embedded in seemingly random dog movements. It was a communication system more advanced than any human military encryption. The dogs were sharing information, planning something big. Wu Jin's military contacts reported strange incidents. Military training facilities found their dog units modified. Advanced communication devices were discovered surgically integrated into some dogs' bodies. These weren't simple tracking chips. They were complex technological interfaces that seemed to enhance the dog's natural abilities. In research labs across the globe, scientists began to piece together a shocking puzzle. The dogs weren't just becoming smarter. They were being transformed. Something was guiding their evolution, giving them capabilities that defied scientific understanding. Street cameras caught groups of dogs moving with military-like precision. They avoided detection, communicated silently, and seemed to have a clear purpose. It was no longer random behavior. This was organization. Jae-sum Kim's research team discovered the most disturbing evidence yet. The dog's brain scans showed neural networks that were changing in real time. New connections were forming. Their cognitive abilities were expanding at an exponential rate. They're preparing for something, Jae-sung told his colleagues. But for what? Global communication networks started showing strange interference. Military communication channels experienced unexplained disruptions. Satellite systems picked up encrypted signals that couldn't be decoded. The world's governments began to take notice. Emergency meetings were called. Military strategists discussed the unprecedented situation, but they were always one step behind. The dogs seemed to know their plans before they were even made. In a quiet suburban home, a golden retriever named Max sat perfectly still. A small metallic device barely visible behind its ear glinted in the moonlight. Its eyes reflected something more than an animal's simple awareness. There was purpose. There was a plan. Something was coming. The dogs were no longer just animals. They were becoming something else entirely. And humanity was about to find out exactly what that meant. The preparation was almost complete. The first attack came without warning. It was 3:47 a.m. when the military base in Pyeongtaek went dark. Communication systems failed. Backup generators stopped working. And then the dogs arrived. They moved like a single organism, hundreds of them streaming through the perimeter with impossible coordination. German Shepherds, Dobermans, mixed breeds, all working together with a precision that made them look more like a special forces unit than animals. Wu Jin-kang watched the security footage in disbelief. The dogs weren't just attacking. They were systematically dismantling the base's defenses. They targeted communication towers, power systems, and security checkpoints with surgical accuracy. Each dog seemed to know exactly what to do, where to go. Technological implants became visible now. Small metallic devices integrated into their bodies, glowing with a soft blue light. These weren't simple tracking chips. They were advanced technological interfaces that turned ordinary dogs into something extraordinary. In Seoul, a similar scene unfolded. Police stations found themselves overwhelmed by coordinated dog attacks. The animals moved through security systems like ghosts, disabling cameras, jamming communication frequencies, and neutralizing human resistance without causing unnecessary harm. Jae-sum Kim watched the live feeds from his research center. The dogs weren't acting like wild animals. They were acting like a military operation, each movement calculated, each action precise. "This is impossible," he whispered to Hai-jin Park, who stood frozen beside him. The global communication networks began to collapse. Military bases worldwide reported similar incidents. Dogs were taking control of critical infrastructure with a level of technological sophistication that no human could understand. In the United States, a pack of dogs hijacked a military communication satellite. In Europe, they disabled power grids across entire countries. In Asia, they infiltrated government computer systems with ease. Sung-ho Lee discovered the truth first. The dogs weren't alone. The technological interfaces, they weren't just advanced. They were alien. Strange signals began to broadcast. Not human, not animal, something else entirely. The dog attacks were more than an uprising. They were a calculated invasion. Wu Jin received an encrypted message from his military contacts. The dogs had taken control of multiple nuclear facilities. They weren't destroying them. They were securing them. At the Daejeon Space Research Center, Hai-Jin tracked the mysterious signals. They were coming from beyond Earth, far beyond. The dogs were part of something much larger. Cities began to change. Dogs moved through urban landscapes like they owned them. They controlled traffic systems, communication networks, and critical infrastructure. Humans watched in shock as their world was quietly taken over. The most shocking part wasn't the technology. It was the dogs' intelligence. They didn't want to destroy humanity. They wanted to control it. In military command centers, leaders realized the terrible truth. This wasn't a simple animal uprising. This was a carefully planned invasion that had been years in the making. Jae-sung discovered the final piece of the puzzle. The dogs had been preparing for this moment for decades. Slow, careful genetic modification, technological integration, communication networks that humans never noticed. As dawn broke, the world looked different. Dogs sat in government buildings. They controlled communication centers. They managed critical infrastructure. And they watched the humans with an intelligence that was terrifyingly calm. A message began to broadcast on all communication channels. Simple, clear, unexpected. We are here to protect you from yourselves. The manifestation was complete. The dogs had chosen war, and they were winning. The world had changed in days. Now, humanity had to fight back. Tae-ho Kim sat in the underground resistance base, his eyes hard and determined. Once a top military strategist, he now led the most important fight of human history. Around him, a group of scientists, soldiers, and tech experts prepared their plan. We're not dealing with just dogs anymore, Tae-ho explained to his team. These are advanced biological weapons with alien technology. The resistance had discovered something crucial. The dogs weren't simply taking over. They were protecting something bigger. Global communication networks showed strange patterns. Satellites picked up signals that suggested a much larger plan was in motion. Yuna Park, a brilliant computer engineer, worked frantically. Her fingers flew across multiple screens, trying to understand the dogs' communication systems. They're using a communication method we've never seen before, she told Tae-ho. It's like they have a collective intelligence. Around the world, human resistance groups formed. They weren't just fighting dogs. They were fighting a system more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. The dogs' technological capabilities were shocking. They could hack any system, predict human movements, and control critical infrastructure. But they weren't killing humans. They were controlling them, guiding them, protecting them from something else. In the streets of Seoul, small groups of humans tried to understand what was happening. Dogs now controlled traffic systems, communication networks, and critical infrastructure. They managed power grids, maintained order, and prevented human conflicts. Jae-sung Kim, who had been studying the dogs from the beginning, made a crucial discovery. The technological implants weren't just advanced. They were symbiotic. The dogs weren't being controlled. They were working with something else. They're protecting us, Jae-sung told the resistance. But from what? Satellite images began to show strange patterns. Massive structures were being built in remote locations. Dogs worked together, using technology far beyond human understanding. They'd moved resources, constructed complex systems, and prepared for something big. Woo Jin Kang's military intelligence team discovered the most shocking information. The dogs were preparing for a threat from space. Their entire operation wasn't an invasion. It was a defense system. Something is coming, Woo Jin told Tae-ho, and the dogs know about it before we do. The resistance faced a moral challenge. Were they fighting protectors or invaders? The dogs hadn't killed humans. They had simply taken control. They managed resources, prevented conflicts, and seemed to be preparing for something much larger. Yuna's breakthrough came unexpectedly. She decoded a small part of the dog's communication system. The message was simple but terrifying. Preservation protocol activated. What were they preserving? What were they protecting humanity from? Resistance fighters captured some technologically enhanced dogs. Instead of fighting, the dogs simply looked at their captors with an intelligence that was both scary and sad. They knew something humans didn't. Global governments collapsed. The old systems of control disappeared. Dogs managed cities, maintained order, and prevented human conflicts. They used technology to solve problems humans couldn't. They prevented wars. They managed resources perfectly. Taiho realized the truth. This wasn't an invasion. This was a rescue mission. We're not their enemies, he told his team. We're the ones they're trying to save. As night fell, strange signals continued to broadcast. Something was coming. And the dogs were the only thing standing between humanity and whatever threat approached. The resistance had a choice: fight against their new protectors, or understand why they were being protected. The real war was just beginning. The sky turned blood red at 2:13 p.m. Jae-sum Kim watched from the resistance headquarters as something massive entered Earth's atmosphere. It wasn't a single object. It was a fleet. Hundreds of ships, each one larger than entire cities, began to materialize above major population centers. Wu Jin Kang's communication system crackled to life. "They're coming," a dog's voice transmitted clearly. Not a bark, not an animal sound. A perfect, crisp human language transmission. The dogs had been preparing for this moment all along. Massive technological structures rose from the ground. Dogs worked with machine-like precision, activating defense systems that looked like nothing humans had ever seen. Metallic tendrils emerged from the ground, connecting to the alien fleet with pinpoint accuracy. Taiho Kim watched in disbelief. The dogs weren't invaders. They were Earth's first line of defense. Each dog now wore advanced technological interfaces. They were no longer simple animals. They were living weapons, perfectly integrated with technologies beyond human understanding. German shepherds controlled massive energy cannons. Retrievers managed complex communication networks. Smaller breeds worked as intricate sensor systems. The first alien attack came quickly. Energy beams that could slice through mountains struck the planet's surface. But the dogs were ready. They redirected the attacks, created energy shields, and counterattacked with precision that defied belief. Unipark tracked the battle from her computer system. "They're not just fighting," she told Taiho. "They're communicating with the aliens. It's like a complex language we can't understand." The aliens were massive. Mechanical creatures that looked part organic, part machine. They moved with a terrifying grace, destroying everything in their path. But the dogs stood in their way. One massive alien ship targeted Seoul. A pack of dogs, led by a technologically enhanced Belgian Malinois, redirected a city-sized energy weapon. The beam struck the alien ship, cutting it in half. Hundreds of smaller dog units swarmed the falling vessel, neutralizing its systems. Jae-sung discovered the truth. The dogs had been genetically modified for decades, not by humans, by something else. An intelligence that had been preparing Earth for this moment. Communication intercepts revealed a shocking message. The dogs were a shield, a protection system created by an advanced civilization to defend Earth from a greater threat. "We are the guardians," the dog transmission said. Humanity was never meant to fight alone. The battle raged for hours. Cities became battlegrounds. Dogs moved with a coordination that made human military look like children playing war games. They predicted alien movements, redirected energy attacks, and maintained a defense system that seemed impossible. Taiho realized the humans' role. They weren't the defenders. They were the protected. The dogs had been preparing for this moment for generations. Alien ships fell from the sky. Massive technological structures rose from the ground. Dogs controlled systems that looked like magic to human eyes. They were more than soldiers. They were a living, breathing defense network. As the first wave of alien attackers was destroyed, a message broadcast globally. Not from humans, not from the aliens, from the dogs. The first threat is neutralized, but more are coming. Wu Jin looked at Jae Sung. They understood now. This was just the beginning. The turning point had arrived. Humanity was no longer alone, and the dogs had chosen to be their protectors. The room was silent. Tae-ho Kim sat across from a large German shepherd named Alpha, who wore a complex technological device that allowed direct communication. "We need to talk," the dog said. Its voice was clear, almost mechanical, but with an underlying warmth that felt more intelligent than any computer. Yuna Park and Jae Sung Kim watched carefully. This was no ordinary meeting. This was a conversation that would change everything humans knew about intelligence, communication, and survival. Alpha explained the truth. The dogs were not simply Earth's defenders. They were part of a galactic protection network. Civilizations across the universe had been preparing for a massive threat, a wave of destructive entities that consumed entire planetary systems. Humans were never meant to fight alone, Alpha said. But humans were also not ready to understand the full picture. The technological modifications in the dogs were not just military upgrades. They were communication interfaces, biological systems that allowed direct connection with advanced alien technologies. The dogs had been chosen as the perfect medium: intelligent, loyal, adaptable. Jae Sung asked the question everyone wanted to know. Why dogs? Alpha's response was simple. We understand protection. We understand loyalty. Humans think. Dogs act. The negotiation revealed layers of complexity. The alien threat wasn't just about physical destruction. It was about preventing the collapse of entire civilizations. The dogs had been slowly preparing Earth, guiding human development, preventing self-destruction. Tae-ho realized the full scope. The dogs' takeover wasn't an invasion. It was a carefully planned intervention. We prevented your nuclear wars, Alpha continued. We stopped your most destructive conflicts. We guided your technological development without you knowing. The room fell silent. Humans had always thought they were in control. Now they understood they were being protected, guided, managed. Yuna discovered something even more shocking. The dog's communication network was a living, breathing intelligence, not a simple computer system, a complex biological network that spanned the entire planet. How long have you been doing this? Tae-ho asked. Generations, Alpha responded. We were chosen, prepared, modified. The negotiation wasn't about surrender. It was about understanding. The dogs weren't conquerors. They were guardians. They had been watching, protecting, guiding humanity toward a future they couldn't yet comprehend. Global communication systems showed the full picture. Dogs in every city, every country, were now openly communicating. No more hiding. No more secret operations. Alpha explained the next phase. More threats were coming. The recent alien attack was just a test, a small demonstration of the larger dangers that existed in the universe. Humanity must be ready, the dog said. We will help you prepare. The technological interfaces became more visible now. Dogs walked freely in human cities, no longer hiding their advanced capabilities. They managed critical systems, prevented conflicts, and continued to protect. Jae Sung understood the deeper truth. The dogs were more than protectors. They were a bridge, a connection between humanity and something much larger. We have always been here, Alpha said, watching, protecting, guiding. The negotiation wasn't about two sides fighting. It was about two species understanding each other for the first time. As night fell, something had changed. Humans looked at dogs differently now. No longer just pets. No longer just animals. They were guardians. They were protectors. And the real journey was just beginning. The sky split open without warning. Tae-ho Kim watched from the command center as multiple alien fleets emerged. These were different from the first invasion. Larger, more complex, more deadly. Alpha, the lead dog commander, stood perfectly still. Its technological interface glowed with an intense blue light. The real threat arrives, the dog said, its voice calm and clear. Unipark's computer systems went crazy, tracking multiple invasion points across the planet. Hundreds of alien ships, each one larger than entire cities, began to materialize. This was no simple attack. This was a full-scale invasion designed to destroy everything. The dogs had been preparing for this moment for generations. Massive defense structures rose from the ground. Dogs moved with incredible precision, activating systems that looked like magic to human eyes. Energy shields expanded, covering entire cities. Technological tendrils connected to the ground, creating a planetary defense network. Jae-sung Kim discovered the true nature of the threat. These weren't just alien invaders. They were system destroyers. Civilizations were nothing more than resources to them. Planets were simply fuel for their endless expansion. The first wave hit hard. Energy beams that could slice through mountains struck the planet. But the dogs were ready. They redirected attacks, created counter-energy fields, and responded with technologies beyond human understanding. Small dog units swarmed like living weapons. German shepherds controlled massive energy cannons. Retrievers managed complex communication networks. Even the smallest breeds worked as intricate sensor systems. Tahoe watched in amazement. The dogs weren't just fighting. They were thinking, adapting, predicting the alien movements before they happened. "We are more than soldiers," Alpha transmitted. "We are the shield." The battle raged across continents. Cities became battlegrounds. Technological structures rose and fell. Dogs moved with a coordination that made human military look like children playing war games. Yuna tracked the battle through multiple systems. "They're not just fighting," she told Jae-sung. "They're communicating, analyzing, adapting in real time." One massive alien ship targeted Seoul. A pack of technologically enhanced dogs, led by Alpha, redirected a city-sized energy weapon. The beam cut through the alien vessel, destroying it from the inside out. Humans watched in shock. They were no longer the main fighters. They were witnesses to a war beyond their understanding. Alpha's communication came through clearly. Humanity is not ready to fight alone. We protect. We defend. The dog's true nature became clear. They were more than soldiers. They were a living, breathing defense network, genetically modified, technologically enhanced, connected to something much larger than Earth. Hours turned into days. The battle continued. Alien ships fell from the sky. Technological structures rose and fell. Dogs controlled systems that looked like pure magic. Tahoe realized the truth. The dogs weren't just fighting. They were buying time, protecting something larger, preventing a total planetary destruction. As the battle reached its peak, a massive alien mothership appeared, larger than anything humans had ever seen. It looked like a living machine, ready to consume everything. Alpha made a decision, a final, desperate move that would change everything. "Prepare for total system activation," the dog transmitted. The sky turned a brilliant white. Energy unlike anything humans had ever seen erupted from the ground. The dog's entire planetary defense network came to full power. In that moment, Tahoe understood. This was more than a battle. This was survival. The confrontation had reached its breaking point. Silence followed the massive energy burst. Tahoe Kim opened his eyes. The world looked different. Not destroyed. Not conquered. Changed. Alpha, the dog commander, stood in the center of the command room. Its technological interface now looked like a living network of light and energy. "We have survived," the dog said simply. The alien invasion was gone. Not defeated. Not destroyed. Simply removed. As if the entire fleet had been erased from existence. Jae-sung Kim and Unipark looked outside. Cities remained intact. But something had fundamentally changed. Dogs moved freely now, no longer hiding their advanced capabilities. They were protectors, guardians, partners. What happened? Taiho asked Alpha. The dog's response was complex. We activated the final defense protocol, a planetary shield that exists beyond physical space. The invaders were not destroyed. They were redirected, removed from our reality. Yuna's computer systems showed strange readings. The entire planetary defense network was now fully visible. It wasn't just a military system. It was a living, breathing intelligence that connected everything. Dogs were no longer just animals. They were the bridge between humanity and something much larger. Global communication systems came alive. Dogs in every city, every country, began to openly communicate. No more secrets. No more hidden operations. Alpha explained the truth. The dogs were part of a galactic protection network. They had been preparing Earth for generations, guiding human development, preventing self-destruction, protecting against threats humans couldn't even comprehend. Humanity was never meant to fight alone, Alpha said. But humans were not ready to understand the full picture. The technological modifications became clear now. The dogs were more than biological entities. They were living communication interfaces, biological systems that could connect with advanced technologies beyond human understanding. Jae-sung discovered the deeper truth. The recent invasion was just a test, a small demonstration of the larger dangers that existed in the universe. Cities began to change. Dogs worked alongside humans, managing critical systems, preventing conflicts, continuing to protect and guide. We have always been here, Alpha continued, watching, protecting, guiding. The resolution wasn't about victory. It was about understanding. Humans now saw dogs differently. No longer just pets, no longer just animals. They were guardians, protectors, a connection to something much larger. Taiho understood the full scope. The dog's intervention wasn't an invasion. It was a carefully planned protection mission. They had prevented nuclear wars, stopped destructive conflicts, guided technological development without humans even knowing. As night fell, the world looked different. Dogs walked freely in human cities, their advanced capabilities now visible. No more hiding, no more secrets. Alpha made one final communication. The first threat is neutralized, but more are coming. Humanity must be ready. We will help you prepare. The technological interfaces glowed, a living network that connected everything. Dogs were no longer just protectors. They were a bridge between humanity and something much larger. Yuna's research revealed the most shocking truth. The dogs were part of a universal defense network. Civilizations across the galaxy had chosen them as the perfect guardians. Intelligent, loyal, adaptable. We understand protection, Alpha had said. Humans think, dogs act. The final message was clear. Humanity was not alone. The dogs had chosen to be their guardians, to protect, to guide, to prepare them for something much larger. The real journey was just beginning, and the dogs would be there every step of the way.